cybersecurity authors in Australia get-together session. So I'm really excited to have a lot of big names here in the house today, and we're gonna go one round for self-introduction. So we'll start off first with Phil. Maybe can you introduce yourself and also the title of the book that you've written?
Yeah, thank you, Shamane. I am Zongo. I'm one of the directors at the Cyber Leadership Institute with my business partners, Darren Argyle and Jan Schroeder. Basically, we train aspiring existing CISOs in leadership and influencing skills so that they can, be better at what they do. I am also the author of the 5 Anchors of Cyber Resilience, which is a book that strips away the complexity of cybersecurity and passes on practical guidance to senior business leaders. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Phil. Over to you, Craig.
Hi, everyone. I'm Craig Ford. I'm the author of a Hacker IM book and more recently the Hacker IM Volume 2. During my day job, I'm a senior cybersecurity engineer and a unit coordinator for Western Sydney University.
Very nice. And to our other panel speaker, Amanda Jane Turner. Mandy, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, Shamane. Hi, everyone. I am the manager of the University of Queensland Cybersecurity Operations Centre, and I'm also an adjunct lecturer with the criminology people at UQ. I have written Unmasking the Hacker, Demystifying Cybercrime. I've also written and illustrated a colouring book, Mothers of Invention, Women in Tech, and I will be publishing another book soon in July.
Oh, fantastic. Very, very excited. And yeah, Mandy was telling me some really interesting things about her journey earlier, but we'll get to that in a bit. Okay, so for me, I'm the host for today. My name is Shamane Tan. I'm also the executive advisor for our APAC relations for paperback, which is an Australian and Singapore cybersecurity consulting firm. At that aside, I'm the founder of Cyber Risk Meetup, which is a lovely community of all cyber risk leaders across Australia, Singapore, and Japan. And I also produce podcasts, which is called the Mega C-Suite Stories. In fact, today's session will be on the podcast as well. So for all the audio lovers, you can catch up on that. And we will also be on YouTube, the YouTube channel. So you can look for us on Cyber Risk Meetup YouTube channel. But I'm also the author of Cyber Risk Leaders. So really excited to have lots of good conversations today. So without further ado, actually, just something that a friend told me that I thought would be really nice to share with everyone. He was sharing about he attended my book launch and he was congratulating me the other time. This was sometime last year, and he shared that he's visited the JFK Presidential Library in Boston recently, and he saw a note that JF Kennedy wrote to Nixon after JFK defeated Nixon in the 1960s presidential campaign. And he said to Nixon that writing a book was a great advantage, and it gave JFK an edge as someone who was disciplined and intellectual. So here I have with me this incredible group of people who have actually written a book, and so we're gonna kick off with addressing some of the questions that our community has been asking us. So the first question, Craig, maybe you can start off. You have an interesting story to share about how you actually begin your writing journey. Do you want to tell us all about this?
Sure. I guess it probably started, I would say, probably around 3 years ago now. I had a few opinions I wanted to sort of share, so I sort of reached out to CSO Online, who sort of allowed me to publish a few of my stories and sort of just spread some of my opinion. But it was probably 2 years ago. It was actually a conversation with Amanda Jane, saying that she liked my articles and that I should turn that sort of style into a book. So thanks to Amanda, I've written these sort of books. So, but yeah, that's how my writing sort of started, and I quite enjoyed it. So I've written 2 now, which is pretty fun. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
Awesome. Phil?
My writing story started, yes, at the end of 2014. And I was working as a technology risk manager at one of Australia's largest financial services institutions. I was pretty much fed up by being, mediocre with what I did. I was doing well, looking from the outside, but I felt like I could push myself And the primary motivator for me is I wanted to differentiate myself from the masses. And I like the statement that you just quoted from JFK. And I thought that, if I sharpened my business writing skills, I would be able to differentiate myself, because in IT, we generally struggle to write. So that's when that's what motivated me. And I started writing some long form and started publishing articles on cloud computing, machine learning, and yeah, that's what really ignited my writing journey. So ever since, I've never looked back.
Wow. And are you going to start writing your second book soon?
I already started writing my second book. I've written 59,000 words already on my second book. And I've already gotten a literary agent, because I want to publish with the big 5 publishers. So I'm already out there. I write every day. For me, to write is to die. So it's just become part of my DNA now. So I never look back.
Yeah, well, there you go. Like, the first book is always the hardest to start, but once you start it, you're inspired to keep on going. And as you say, start small, like every day, just write a little bit, because I think we have some interested writers as well in the audience, and that was one of the questions they were asking, like, how do you start? It seems very daunting, right? But if you just do it a little bit every day, you eventually get there. And Mandy, I think it's amazing to hear from Craig that you really encouraged him and inspired him in his writing journey. How does it feel to know that, look at that, one of the finished product, I would say.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. I'm happy that Craig took my advice, which isn't always that good, but in this case it turned out well. I actually started writing and drawing comics and things when I was a teenager, and I was published then. And I've always wanted to write a novel, but I realised that there was a gap in cybercrime and cybersecurity information. And I keep talking to people who keep going, there's a divide between techies and non-techies, and that books are either very academic or very technical, but they're too hard to read and too hard to understand. So perhaps similar to how Craig wrote his articles for CSO Online and his Hacker I Am books, there is a need for plain English for people to actually understand things without jargon. And so I want to write it for that reason.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of like being in this community as well, right? It shows that there's so much to learn from everyone. And, as we are just encouraging each other, and we get to be part of their journey, right? And to see how they're contributing back to the community now. And even yourself, like using all your different passion and skills to put that into a book, into comics and things like that, to really just share that with the rest of our industry. It's inspiring. And for myself, like, how I've gotten into this, I think for me, it's always just a childhood dream. I've always wanted to write a book since young. I just didn't know what sort of book I'll be writing. And as part of like the work I've been doing and just being so embedded in the industry and community, I find that there's a lot of amazing lessons that we can learn from the people who have gone ahead of us. And it's just life is an onward learning journey. And I just feel like, it's so rich, like this experience that our industry leaders have, and I want to share that with everyone else, because we don't want to learn from our own mistakes. We rather learn from the mistakes of others and just grow upwards from there. So that actually just inspired me to, why not put all of that together, extract that insights out, and then put it into a book so it can be used as a conversation starter for like aspiring CEI, CISOs or current CISOs, or even the next generation leaders, or even just new people to our industry, because there's so much we can learn. Yeah, so that's how I actually started. And all right, I want to hear also from the rest of you. Like the imposter syndrome is a very real thing, and Craig, you and I were talking about it before as well, and it's something that yeah, people do struggle with that. The feeling of sometimes you are criticizing yourself, you're listening more to your inner voice, or you're too conscious about the criticism from others, that it holds you back and compels you from moving forward or trying new things. So how do you guys deal with that when you are even in your writing journey, or just thinking about publishing the book, or even in your current careers, right? How do you all deal with the imposter syndrome? Can you share some tips that you've gone about this? Free
I
for
might as well
all. Who
take
wants
that
to go
first.
first?
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually wrote about it in my second book. It's something that I personally suffer from a little bit. I think it's sort of good though. We sort of got to push ourselves a little bit to sort of go past that and just continue working. And yeah, we all have those little voices saying, you know, does people really want to listen to this? Do they really want to read my stuff? But I think we all have something to share. I think just give it a go, reach out, talk to people, write what you want to write, give your opinions. And yeah, it's not as scary as it sounds. It's worked out pretty well for me. I quite enjoy the writing and I like sharing my opinions, and I hope people like reading my stuff. So yeah, I think if anyone else have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, well, imposter syndrome, it's not a new concept, and it's being talked about a lot these days, but I remember reading a peer-reviewed article. It was from research done in, I think, either 1980 or 81. It discussed a perceived fraudulence in young adults, and it actually questioned, was there an imposter syndrome because of it? And there was a lot of research in it. There's actually imposter phenomenon scales where people can see how much of an imposter syndrome they have, including the Clark's imposter scale, the Harvey imposter scale. They're from the 80s. There's a perceived fraudulence scale from 1991. So it's definitely a real thing. And there's been lots and lots of research in it. There's also a link between imposter syndrome and high achievers and people with low self-esteem. And I think that anyone that has managed to write a book would be a high achiever. And low self-esteem is also not just linked to people who've had bad upbringings or bad lives, but also to high achievers, because you can never please yourself. You always think what you do is not good enough. And like Craig said, I think you just go and do it. What has helped me a lot, particularly in publishing this book, is that my husband keeps me honest, and he's probably in the room laughing at me right now. But when I don't believe in myself, he can believe in me for me, and my peers and my teams. So I currently have a wonderful team and a really lovely manager at UQ. And they help me, and my peers at UQ, they help me believe in myself, because if I don't believe in myself, they do. And I think that's important too. So people you respect, if they believe in what you do, then you just forget your own imposter syndrome and go, okay, I don't believe in myself, but these other people do. So I'll live up to what they believe in.
Thanks, Mandy. That's beautiful. Phil, anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a journey, and there's few principles that I abide by that have helped me so much. And one thing for me is fear itself is not necessarily a bad thing, because as long as you're willing to step out of the comfort zone, you're always going to be afraid. And now I actually enjoy doing things that I'm scared of. And it's not just writing, you know, for me, it's a concept that we call social signaling, where it's much easier to do stuff when there are people who look like you, who are doing what you aspire to do. And, you know, being an African Australian here, it just makes me, you know, I am definitely a minority. And the first steps are really hard. So for me, it's not just about writing, you know, it's about 3-4 years ago when I was invited to come and speak at the, you know, my first cybersecurity conference, and I was really scared. I always tell people, you know, my heart was beating faster than the V8 engine, because I've been attending these conferences before, and I was the only African Australian at the conference, let alone going up there on the stage and starting to speak. But for me, fear is not a bad thing, because it forces me to prepare even harder. So I started blogging about the topic that I was supposed to talk about. I wrote about it on LinkedIn. A lot of people commented and provided feedback. My thought process, you know, really refined. And then I just went there and I spoke. And, you know, 3 weeks later, I got an email from the organizers saying your sessions were the highest rated across the conference. So, you know, that by itself gave me a lot of confidence to say, you know, if I listen to my inner voice, and definitely if you're doing something like writing a cybersecurity book, you are definitely being vulnerable, because people can come out They give you really bad reviews. They can say whatever they want. But one thing that I've learned also over the years is people are not as bad as we think. You know, for me, my book has been positively embraced by people all over the world. The feedback on Amazon it's glowing, and but it is those inner voices that we have to deal with. So fear is not a bad thing. You just have to be able to mute your fears and take that vital first step, because once you take the first step, everything else becomes magical.
I love that. I love that. I really appreciate how all of you are being so real in your journey, because it is something that everyone face, and perhaps like what Mandy said, in different level, you know, different scale as well. Like for me, it's funny because people don't believe it now when I tell them, but I've been an introvert, right? And I used to be so, like, I always get nervous before I do any public speaking or go even for just a meeting with a new person for a client meeting. I get really nervous and all this adrenaline is pumping and I'm probably overthinking a lot. And it's very uncomfortable for me. But I'm quite similar to you, Phil, where I've learned to just put myself in any uncomfortable situation, because I feel that it actually sharpens me. It helps me learn more about myself, about people. And it's just about pushing past like the voices in our heads and in our thoughts telling us, you know, I think we are usually our harshest critic. And, you know, I gave a recent, actually before the COVID, so I gave a TEDx talk, and again, that was one of my childhood dreams to be able to do that. And the talk was on the very same title, which is the Impostor Syndrome, but of the tall poppies. You know, in Australia, we have the tall poppy syndromes and all. But I'm just trying to illustrate that no matter which stage you are at, most people will still battle with this imposter syndrome. And, you know, people have been telling me like, maybe I should just wait till I'm like good enough before I start doing something or start putting myself out there. But the way I see it, like if we keep waiting, we'll keep saying no to any opportunities and we will deprive ourselves of growing, right? But as long as we keep saying yes to any opportunities and, you know, putting ourselves out there, that's how we can really grow. And every one of you have a very unique story. So I feel like we shouldn't discredit our experience. You know, there's always something we can add value to people. So that encouraged me in my own journey to just push past the voices in my head, put myself out there. I know there will be, you know, everyone has opinion, right? So there's usually like a good opinion that encourage you. And like what Mandy says, surround yourself with good people who can sharpen you. But at the same time, be open to the feedback. You know, whether it's constructive feedback or criticism, take the things that you can learn and use it to just develop yourself further. And when you have that mindset, yeah, that actually helps you to, I think before you know it, you look back and you realize, wow, all the little baby steps that you have taken and it has brought you to the right direction. And now you have taken a giant leap forward. So that's my story of how I've just had to learn to do with that. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey and we are still going through that every day. So on to, I hope that actually answers a few of the audience questions. On to another thing that I want to talk about is like, I think it's good to share with the audience, right? Some of the key insights that the readers, because we have so many different books and different focus of the books. What are the key insights that the readers can take away from your book?
Who wants to go first? Me.
Great.
I think probably out of my first book, I probably focus a lot more on the getting into the cybersecurity industry, at least initially in the first half of the book, with sort of, in my opinion, I think there's usually a lot of knockbacks and things like that, and it's sort of hard to get into our industry. So I think you just got to keep pushing forward and sort of just keep going at it. If you're sort of keen to get into the industry, yeah, just don't give up. Just keep pushing forward. I think that's probably the biggest thing in my first book that I sort of went through quite a lot. And then just sort of some general about IoT and some of the security risks, and tried to make my sort of books as like Amanda said, as sort of less technical as possible, make it sort of nice and easy to read. I actually got called, it was called a toilet book by Garrett O'Hara from Mimecast.
Oh,
it was
yes,
kind of
I heard
the
that.
last time we had to talk. But,
it's actually a good
basically, yeah, it was caught me off surprise when he said it, but yeah, it actually makes sense. The short, easy little chapters you can read in any order. So it's yeah, it's a good little quick read sort of book. But that's enough about my book. I think someone else can have a bit of a chat.
You should stock it up in the toilet, right? If we don't have yeah. But congratulations, also great. You just launched your second book, so that's an amazing
Thank you.
achievement. So yeah, well done. Phil, Andy, who wants to go next?
I'll go. Okay, so my first book, as I said earlier, there was a need for cybercrime awareness. So Craig is more from a cybersecurity perspective, but mine is more from a cybercrime perspective, and I think in a way they complement each other. So I wanted people to understand that having the hackers and hoodies idea, it's a damaging stereotype. I believe thinking that all cybercrime is committed by hackers in hoodies is detrimental, because we can't defend ourselves from cybercrime if we think it's this super entity, this super genius bad person in a hoodie hiding there doing bad stuff. And I wanted to stop that narrative. And I also wanted to make it easy to understand, but I wanted it to appeal to everybody, so all users of technology. I think it was a friend of mine, Simon Starn, who said that it's good for whether you're already in this job as well as beginners, because it has something for everybody. You can learn something. I went back into history to talk about the very earliest hacking with Marconi's radio signals. So you can learn a bit about that, but it also, towards the end of the book, talks about the things you can do to help yourself. And none of us are immune to cybercrime. It doesn't matter how great we are at working in that, we are not immune to scams. And I wanted to make sure people had a bit of a resource to go to. So my chapters, like Craig's, are standalone chapters. You don't have to read the book cover to cover. But if you do read it that way, it is chronological. And I have key takeaways there. So every chapter, there's 3 or 4 things for you to remember. So it's ideal for educators to use as well. And then my second book, which is the colouring book, I wanted people to understand, children, young people, that women have been in technology far longer than they thought they were. And we need to break the barriers. So my Mother's of Invention Women in Tech colouring book talks about like Jean Bartek and Elizabeth Friedman, and it has little paragraphs about these people and drawings I've done on them. So to me, it was important that people understand that women have been around in technology far longer than they think they have as well.
That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for coming up with that idea and doing this. Phil.
Yeah, so my journey is similar to Amanda's. When I moved on technology risk to cybersecurity a few years ago, I was really disappointed because I tried to upskill myself as much as I could, but I found the material to be very technical, and the language was pretty arcane. So my goal in writing the 5 anchors of cyber resilience was to push the subject from the periphery of the IT enterprise to the broad business, to the broader business. So the key message for my book is, as a cyber leader, cybersecurity is more about strategy and leadership than anything else, than technical controls. Having said that, technical controls play a significant role, but my key message there is, if you join an organization as a CISO, you need to ruthlessly prioritize. You need to position cybersecurity as a business enabler, not as a necessary compliance evil, which has been the case in some organizations. So the idea for me is, for you to come up with a proper cybersecurity strategy, you need not only to know what you need to be doing, but what you also need not to be doing. So it is about making those very difficult choices. That's why I zero in the 5 anchors. And it's not like to say you couldn't do more. There could be 6 anchors or 7 anchors or 8 anchors. It doesn't matter. But you need to ruthlessly prioritize and focus on those things that matter. So for me, those 5 anchors, number one is you need to know your crown jewels, those most important digital assets that underpin the lifeline of your enterprise. You need to develop a cyber savvy workforce from the frontline staff members. They need to be able to detect and prevent cybercrime. You need to tighten cybersecurity within the supply chain. Then you need to develop really business-aligned cybersecurity governance frameworks to be able to push that message to the board of directors. Then lastly, you need to build cybersecurity into new digital offerings. You need to think about cybersecurity early and build those critical controls from the outset, rather than think about cybersecurity after the products have already gone into live production. So that's pretty much the message from my book.
And I think that's really helpful because like having worked with so many CISOs, when they first come into organization, sometimes they don't know where to start because there's just too many things, right? And it's about understanding the organization, understanding the way they perceive risk. And also, I think when you look, there's so many anchors, but it's helpful to know, okay, maybe these are the key 5 ones to start off first with as a fundamental. And then from there, they can, build from there and tweak their strategy and align it again and work accordingly from that. So that's really helpful. In fact, I have both Phil's and Craig's books. I think they're somewhere in my bookshelf over there. But Mandy, I need to get yours. Yeah. So I think for my cyber risk leaders books, the reason how I think the insights that people can get from it is that I find that yes, there's a lot of like when I was more new in the industry years ago, I find there's a lot to learn, right? And sometimes you just find you don't know where to focus and things are always changing and evolving and everyone says, we can't keep up, right? We can never keep up. And we're just playing catch up. But at the end of the day, when I was working with all these CISOs, even the title CISOs, it's fairly new in Australia, only like, less than 10 years. But when I speak to, for example, one of the world's first CISO who was actually playing the CISO role back in 1994, and this was in New York. Okay, and the things that he was sharing with me about the things that he has seen, is about looking at it from a cyber risk perspective rather than just a security point of view, ensuring that it's an enabler, right? And how we work with our other C-suite as partners with them, giving them, it's not about being a showstopper, but you really work with them to find solutions. And the things that he was saying back in 1994, I felt like are the things that we are speaking a lot more frequently in the recent years only. So I just feel like, wait a minute, it's a bit strange if we are talking about the same thing so many years from now. Is it because we are not really applying the lessons? We keep learning the same lessons over and over again, right? And that's where I just feel like it's very important to hear the different C-suite perspective, because after all, they are our stakeholders that as cyber risk leaders, we are working with them, the CROs, the CFOs, the CEO, even like the board directors. And that's where I thought, okay, there is the power of the storytelling, finding out people's personal stories, how they have gone about it. For example, one of the guys in the book is Dan Lawman, who was the first state government CISO for the US for 50 states. And he shared also about how he almost got fired as a CISO. And, we extracted out how, what's the mindset we should have, what's the approach you should take when you're dealing with tricky situations or challenging situations. He actually worked for Terry Takai, who was the first, the CIO actually for Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that was really fascinating. And you find like there's so many stories that we can learn from. And so in terms of like the book itself, like I feel that's what I want to impart to the readers at the end of the day, stories that they can learn from people who have gone ahead of them, and we can learn lessons from there and use those topics also as conversation starters to have a conversations with your other stakeholders if you're trying to win more advocates to our message of cyber risk. So yeah, there we go. We will actually leave, I think some people are asking about where can they get all the different books, so we will announce that towards the end. We just have one more question to go, which is the closing question. And I think it's good because we have so many amazing people here in this house. Can we all go one round and maybe just share like your top practical tips that you will leave the audience, maybe about things that we have learned in our careers, specific to the cybersecurity industry? What is one of the top few tips you want to leave them with? Craig, since you've been setting the example, you want to go first?
That's all going first again. I think probably from me is probably the biggest tip I'd like to sort of say to everybody is, doesn't matter what industry, cybersecurity or not, I think is just push yourself, like Phil said, out of your boundary ignore the fear to a little bit, just sort of keep pushing yourself, keep moving forward, and whatever it is you'd like to sort of get into, I think, yeah, just go for it. There's nothing to lose. You'll just learn a little bit about yourselves doing it. So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest tip. Don't be sort of afraid to give something a go. Just go for it.
Awesome. Mandy?
I think, well, see, my career isn't a cybersecurity career as such. I have a very eclectic job history. And to me, and I was saying this to my friend Shelley the other day, I think that if you want to excel at anything, and particularly in the cybersecurity or cybercrime area, have as many skills as possible. Because particularly for people working against cybercrime, these are just criminals using an online platform. So the more you know about all sorts of things, the better you will be at this. And this industry needs project managers, techies, it needs all sorts of people. So the more we can all do, and the eclectic skills we all have, including creativity and innovation, it will help us along our career way.
Well said. Phil?
Yeah, so I will maybe re-emphasize my previous message. You need to appreciate that, you know, the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but really nothing grows in there. For me, it's been, you know, I started this early. You know, I started pushing myself when I was maybe 7 years old. You know, so I know how to, you know, from experience that, you know, we are much more resilient, and we, you know, the capacity or the potential that we have as human beings is boundless. And you know, by pushing myself out of the comfort zone, doing things that I was previously scared of, you know, speaking at conferences, writing articles, writing books, and you know, doing this, you know, this is not easy for me 5 years ago, just, you know, speaking with you like we're doing here, you know, but by doing so, that's the only way you can discover your hidden potential. There's so much that we can do as human beings. And just to another point as well is, it's pretty easy to excel. Actually, it's easy to stand out because a lot of people are not willing to push themselves beyond that comfort zone. And I know this from experience because I mentor a lot of people. It's very easy. A lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, we like what you're doing. Could you mentor me, please? Because I want to be doing the same things. And the first days are easy. You know, you catch up for coffee and you talk about inspirational stuff. And we say, let's shift the gear and let's do the things that gets us there. A lot of people just ghost you. They just vanish. So it's very easy, you know, out there, you know, write articles, write blogs. The world is, you know, people are much nicer than you think. You might think people would judge you because of your background, because of your skills, and no. And you know, really quickly here, someone recently asked me when I was writing my book, challenged me actually, saying, you know, who are you to be writing a book on cybersecurity? Shouldn't you be an expert first and then people read your book? But it's the other way. You know, for me, writing was a journey to develop those deep and irrefutable skills. You know, you can't wait to become an expert. You're gonna, you know, go out there, you're gonna fail, you iterate, you get better over time. You know, it's perfection is a myth.
Wow, I think for those who are listening, there's so many like nuggets of gold, you know, like that everyone is.
She might have frozen. I think hopefully she'll be back in a second.
Well, it is really cold, so one can understand that. So while we're waiting for Shamane to come back, why don't we tell people where we can get our books from? Phil, where can we buy your book?
Yeah, so my book is pretty everywhere. Any online store, mostly Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google Store, iTunes, wherever. Yeah, so pretty, you know, just go on Google and search 5 Anchors of Cyber Resilience, but it's on all the online bookstores. Thanks for that, Mandy.
And Phil, I've read your book. I read a lot. I often read about a novel a night. As Craig knows, I read a lot. But Phil, I've read your book and I want to say I really, really enjoyed it. It's coming from a different perspective than I think, and I love that because it really opened my eyes. And so everyone get Phil's book. Craig, your books, tell us about where we can get them.
Probably very similar to Phillimon's. Basically, it's pretty much all the online stores, Amazon, Lulu, all the major sort of online ones. It's pretty easy. Just Google it like Phillimon's definitely, and you'll definitely find a few places to get it. If you do want it from a normal bookstore, most of them can order them in. They usually don't sort of hold it in stock, but they can sort of order it in. Shamane's back too, so.
Welcome back, Shamane. I just took over because that is how I roll. So, Craig, Craig, I have read your first book, of course, and I'm looking forward to reading your fantasy novel that I know that you're writing as well.
Yes.
And that will be really awesome. So Craig is actually pursuing a novel thing as well. I want to do novels too, but mine will be about crime because that's how I roll. It won't be about cybercrime, it'll just be about crime and mystery. So my book is only available from Amazon because at the moment I'm doing the Kindle Select thing with my Kindle so that people can get it free. So that Kindle Select program, so I can't send it as an iBook anywhere else. And although I have done some hard copies through Lulu.com, whatever it is, I'm just currently just with Amazon, and I'm not really a business person, so I don't really look into where else I can sell them. I also have some copies myself, which I am happy to give away to worthy people. Shamane, where can we get your book, and you can take over?
Oh, great. Has Phil gone with that already?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
everyone. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So yeah, you can get it on Amazon, on Kindle, on Google Play Books as well. For those who are in Asia, it will be in the local, like Kinokuniya, Times Bookshop, Popular Bookshop. You can just grab a hard copy from the bookstores, local bookstores. Or if you're in the other parts of the world and you want a hard copy rather than Amazon and Kindle, you can just go to Security Marketplace. Look for cyber risk leaders, search it out, and it will come up. Yeah, or mysecuritymarketplace.com/CRL for cyber risk leaders. Yes.
And your book is really good too. I was saying to Phil that I've read his book, and it's a different thought process than how I am, and I really enjoyed it. And it was the same for yours, and I really like the anecdotes, if you will, that you've included. So yeah, people get their books.
Oh, thanks, Mandy. Everyone has put in so much effort in all the different books, and I love it. I can't wait to get yours. And still getting through Craig's Hacker I Am, and now he's already on to volume 2. Yeah, that's how everyone rolls, so quick. Yeah, so I think we really covered a lot of good insights today. I think I love how everyone's just so real and sharing through your experience and journey. And I'll find that I identify with quite a fair bit of what you all have said. And also, I know that our audience and listeners have definitely walked away with a lot of good, helpful tips for them too, that they can apply, you know, whichever industry they are in or whichever journey they are at. So it's a shame we've actually just reached 12:40 on the dot. I really want to thank all of you for your time, and we will see you guys all around somehow. You know, when things passes, we will all meet in person again. And I look forward to that. Yeah. So thank you everyone for that. And we will see, and all the audience and listeners for tuning in. Thank you. And we will see you guys at the next other sessions that I run. Looking forward to that. Take care, you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks,
Thank
Phil.
you
Take
all.
care.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye.